All right, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at the future of real estate.
Specifically 2025.
Yeah, specifically what things might look like in 2025.
Yeah.
You sent us this YouTube video, and it's from One Rental at a Time.
Oh, yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah, and he dropped some pretty bold predictions in this video.
He did.
So we're going to break those down together.
Sounds good.
And joining us again is our expert,
Right.
who is here to kind of help us understand the why behind these predictions.
Yes.
And what you, the listener, should be thinking about as you process this information.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
He makes some big calls.
He does. One rental at a time certainly isn't shy
Yeah.
about making big calls.
Right off the bat.
And it'll be interesting to break him down.
He predicts that millennials are going to become a huge force
Wow.
in the single-family home market,
Interesting.
even comparing it to the post-World War II housing boom.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think that's hyperbole or a real possibility?
I mean, it's definitely a bold statement,
Yeah.
but we can't just dismiss it out of hand.
Right.
He points to things like the infrastructure bill
Yeah.
and the potential for future stimulus as factors that are driving this potential shift.
Right.
And, those things could absolutely create new jobs
Yeah.
and boost economic growth, which would make homeownership more accessible.
I thought it was really interesting the way he phrased it. He said that millennials are going to step up in a huge way.
Yeah, that's interesting phrasing for sure.
Yeah, that really caught my eye.
Yeah, and think about it. The millennial generation is massive.
Huge.
If even a fraction of them decide to buy homes,
Right.
it could have a ripple effect
Yeah.
throughout the entire market.
Okay, so if you're a millennial listening to this,
Yeah.
where do you see yourself fitting into all of this?
Right. Are you renting now, but you're thinking about buying?
Yeah.
Or perhaps you already own a place and you're considering upgrading.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just going to continue to rent.
Right. Or maybe you're going to continue to rent. Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a millennial, this prediction still matters.
Right.
Because increased demand from that generation could drive up prices in certain markets.
Yeah.
Impacting everyone from sellers to landlords to even renters.
Okay, so that's something to keep in mind for sure.
For sure.
Now, One Rental at a Time also predicts a continued decline
Oh,
for big cities like New York and San Francisco,
interesting.
while saying that suburbs and smaller markets are about to take off.
He really thinks that smaller markets and suburbs are going to take off.
Yeah, he uses some pretty stark language here, too.
I bet.
He talks about bottom of their depth of value and destruction.
Wow. That's,
when talking about these big cities.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's quite a visual, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it speaks to a trend we're seeing in real time.
Yeah.
With people reevaluating their priorities, especially post-pandemic.
Right.
Many folks are seeking more space and affordability,
Mm-hmm.
which often leads them away from those major urban centers.
He points to safety concerns
Yeah.
and tax shortfalls
Interesting.
as contributing factors in these big cities,
Yeah,
but also believes that things will eventually turn around
he does.
with 2025 being near the bottom.
Okay, so he thinks 2025 is like the bottom,
Yeah.
right?
But it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, right?
No, and it's important to remember that every city has its own unique set of challenges and opportunities.
Right.
New York and San Francisco are dealing with very specific issues, but those might not apply to other urban areas.
So it seems like we're seeing like a redistribution
Yeah.
of population and economic activity.
Exactly. And, remote work has accelerated that trend,
Right.
allowing people to live further from traditional job centers.
Right.
And it's opening up opportunities in areas that might have been overlooked before.
So for our listener, think about this. How does your current location
Right.
or future plans align with this prediction?
Good question.
Yeah. Are you happy where you are, or are you maybe considering a move in the next few years?
Right.
This is something to ponder.
Absolutely.
Mentally.
Yeah. Now let's talk about One Rental at a Time's third prediction,
Okay.
which is a significant increase in housing assistance programs.
Like Section 8.
Like Section 8, exactly.
Okay.
He believes the program could grow by as much as 50% by 2025.
That's a huge jump.
That's a huge jump.
He even says throwing money at the problem
Yeah.
is the most likely response.
Yeah, he uses some interesting language,
Yeah.
but it highlights a fundamental question.
Yeah. What role should the government play
Exactly.
in addressing housing affordability and access?
Right. And, the pandemic really exposed vulnerabilities in our system,
Right.
with so many people struggling to make ends meet.
So while his language might be strong,
Yeah.
the underlying sentiment is pretty clear.
It is. And while predicting specific policy outcomes is difficult,
Yeah.
Housing affordability is a major concern, and increased assistance could provide much-needed support, for sure.
Yeah, but it also raises questions about funding and sustainability.
It does.
Right. This definitely feels like a multifaceted issue
Absolutely.
with no easy solutions.
No easy solutions.
So for our listener,
Yeah.
consider this. How might increased housing assistance impact affordability and availability in different markets?
Right. That's a really good question.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
the role of government in housing?
Right. Should they be involved? How involved should they be?
Yeah.
These are questions worth considering as we navigate this complex landscape.
All right, on to prediction number 4.
Okay.
And this one might sound good on the surface.
All right. Let's hear it.
One rental at a time believes mortgage rates will stay below 4%
Wow.
through 2025.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
And while that sounds positive for potential home buyers,
Yeah.
even a small increase could have a huge impact on affordability.
Yeah.
Remember, a 1% rise in interest rates
Yeah.
translates to a 33% increase in the amount of interest you're paying.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also mentions the potential for hidden inflation.
Oh, hidden inflation. What's that?
Can you break that down for us?
Sure, yeah. Hidden inflation refers to rising prices
Okay.
for everyday goods and services
Okay.
that aren't always reflected in official inflation measures.
Okay.
So even if interest rates stay low, your purchasing power could be eroded by inflation,
Right.
meaning you can't buy as much with the same amount of money.
Yeah. So for anyone out there considering buying a home,
Yeah.
think about this. How would rising or falling interest rates
Right.
impact your plans?
Great question.
And how would hidden inflation factor into your budget?
Yeah. These are key questions to
Yeah.
consider as you make those big financial decisions.
And finally, prediction number 5.
Okay. That's the last one.
One rental at a time sees strong rental growth,
Okay.
at least 20%,
Wow.
specifically in the affordable single-family home market.
Really?
Yeah, he calls this segment amazing and says he's never seen things move so fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this aligns with those broader trends we've been discussing.
Yeah.
The desire for more space, coupled with affordability concerns,
Yeah.
is driving demand for single-family rentals.
He's clearly highlighting a potential investment opportunity here.
He is.
But what are the risks and rewards
Yeah. What are the risks and rewards?
for investors in this space?
Well, it's all about carefully evaluating market conditions, property values, and potential rental income.
Right.
There are definitely risks involved,
Sure.
but the potential rewards can be significant.
So whether you're a renter
Yeah.
or a landlord, think about how this prediction affects your perspective.
Good point.
Yeah, renters might face higher costs, while landlords could see increased demand.
Exactly. It's all about understanding your position in the market
Right.
and making informed decisions based on the information available.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for part 1.
All right. Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the future of real estate. So far, we've been unpacking one rental at a time's 5 predictions for 2025.
It's a lot to think about.
And now I'm kind of curious to explore some of them in a little more detail.
Yeah, sounds good to me. There's a lot to unpack here.
Let's start with that prediction about millennials dominating the single-family home market, one rental at a time. Paints a pretty optimistic picture, suggesting they're finally ready to jump into home ownership.
He does, doesn't he? But it's important to remember that predictions are just that, predictions.
Right.
There's no guarantee things will unfold exactly as he envisioned.
Right, no crystal ball. But is this optimism shared by other experts? What does the broader data say about millennials and home ownership?
Well, there are some interesting data points that support the idea of a millennial housing boom. For example, recent surveys indicate that a growing number of millennials are expressing a strong desire for home ownership. So the sentiment is definitely there.
Interesting. So the desire exists, but will it translate into actual home buying?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's crucial to look at the factors that might prevent millennials from buying, even if they want to. Student loan debt is a big one, as is the rising cost of living.
One rental at a time does acknowledge those factors, but he seems to believe that things like the infrastructure bill will create enough economic opportunity to outweigh the challenges.
He does, and that's certainly possible. But it's also worth considering that even if millennials do flood the housing market, it won't necessarily be smooth sailing. We could see bidding wars, inflated prices, and maybe even a new housing bubble.
Okay, so a lot of potential complexities there. Now let's switch gears and talk about one rental at a time's prediction about urban decline. He believes cities like New York and San Francisco are headed for tough times, while suburbs and smaller markets will thrive. That prediction seems a bit more controversial. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a bold statement. While some experts agree that cities are facing challenges, they disagree on the severity and duration of those challenges.
So some believe cities are resilient and will bounce back, while others think the pandemic has fundamentally altered urban living. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I think it's important to remember that cities are constantly evolving. They've faced challenges in the past and have always adapted. But it's also true that the pandemic has accelerated certain trends, like remote work, that could have a lasting impact on how people live and work.
And those trends could definitely favor suburbs and smaller markets.
They're could.
Yeah.
But it's also important to consider the specific factors at play in each city, New York and San Francisco. The cities, one rental at a time, highlights are facing unique challenges related to high costs of living, crime rates, and tax policies.
So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Each city has its own unique story to tell.
Exactly. And for our listener, it's crucial to look beyond broad generalizations and examine the local market conditions wherever you live or might be considering moving to.
Great advice. Now let's dive into that prediction about housing assistance programs. One rental at a time seems to think that throwing money at the problem is the most likely solution. What's your take on that?
Well, his phrasing might be a bit simplistic, but it does reflect a common sentiment that government intervention is necessary to address the housing crisis. And I agree to a certain extent. We need to explore every possible avenue for making housing more affordable and accessible.
But as we discussed earlier, there are concerns about program funding and sustainability.
Absolutely. Expanding housing assistance programs would require significant investment, and it's not always clear where those funds would come from. And even if funding is secured, there are questions about how those programs would be implemented and whether they would truly address the root causes of the housing crisis.
So while increasing housing assistance may sound like a quick fix, it's really a complex issue with no easy answers. What are some of the key questions our listeners should be asking about this prediction?
I think it's important to consider how increased housing assistance might impact affordability and availability in different markets. Would it drive up prices? Would it create longer wait lists? Would it incentivize landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers? These are all important questions to ponder.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last two segments really digging into one rental at a time, 5 predictions for the real estate market in 2025.
Yeah, it's been a lot to think about.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, from the potential rise of millennial home ownership and the dynamics between urban and suburban areas to the role of housing assistance programs.
Right, and those interesting thoughts on mortgage rates.
Yeah, and of course, who could forget that prediction about opportunities in the single-family rental market?
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey for sure, but I think now it's time to bring it all home.
I agree. We've covered a lot of information, but what does it all mean for you, the listener?
Right.
That's the real question.
One rental at a time is clearly bullish on real estate as an investment,
Well,
especially for those willing to put in the work.
yeah,
He even plugs his online course in the video,
he does.
encouraging viewers to take action.
He does. And while not everyone listening is looking to become a real estate mogul,
Right.
these predictions have implications for everyone, regardless of your goals.
Exactly. They really force us to think about our own housing goals,
Yeah.
our investment strategies, and those long-term financial plans.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So how about we shift gears and talk about actionable steps?
Okay.
What can our listener do today
Yeah, now we're getting to the good stuff.
to prepare for these potential changes in the housing market?
Let's say you're a millennial who's been on the fence about buying a home.
Yeah.
Maybe these predictions give you the push you need to start seriously considering it.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you're thinking about buying now, might be the time to start researching neighborhoods, talking to lenders, and getting pre-approved for a mortgage.
And for those who are already homeowners but feeling a bit squeezed by rising prices in their area, maybe it's time to explore those emerging markets.
Right. Thinking about those suburbs and tertiary markets poised for growth
Yeah.
is a smart move. Tertiary markets are those smaller cities and towns
Right.
that are experiencing an influx of new residents and businesses.
Right.
These areas often offer a lower cost of living and a higher quality of life, which is appealing to many people.
So do your research, visit some open houses, and see if those areas align with your lifestyle and budget.
Exactly. It's all about exploring your options and finding what feels right for you.
And if you're not in a position to buy right now,
Yeah,
maybe you're focused on paying down debt or building up your savings.
absolutely.
That's perfectly fine too.
The key is to be informed and proactive.
Knowledge is power, especially in a dynamic market like real estate. So stay up to date on market trends, monitor interest rates, and continue to educate yourself about personal finance. There are so many great resources available online and in your community.
I love that. And don't forget about the potential impact of government policies. Keep an eye on developments related to housing assistance programs, tax incentives, and infrastructure spending. Those things can have a real impact on affordability and market dynamics.
It's all connected for sure. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to emphasize one last point. One rental at a time. Make real estate is a long-term game.
Couldn't agree more. It's essential to approach it with a long-term perspective. Don't make impulsive decisions based on short-term trends or predictions. Instead, develop a sound investment strategy, diversify your portfolio, and be prepared for the inevitable ups and downs of the market.
So as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Considering all the information we've discussed, what's one actionable step you can take today to prepare for the potential changes in the housing market?
Maybe it's researching those emerging tertiary markets we talked about.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's reassessing your investment strategy, or even just starting a conversation with your family about your housing goals.
The key is to be proactive and informed. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of real estate.
We hope you found it insightful and empowering. Remember, the future of real estate is in your hands.
Until next time, happy investing.